Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Venruki video. In this one, we got a real banger for you here. We are going to be doing a tier list for 10.2, so you can stay up to date on all the latest World of Warcraft content, including what specs are completely overpowered. That was me just impersonating my good friend Super Tease, okay? And I'm sure he can do the same for me. But anyways, yeah, we're going to do a 10.2 tier list here today. And yeah, so this tier list, obviously I'm not going to know exactly what the best things are, but considering what's good now, and I'm going to do kind of like a threes and shuffle. I think something else to take into account is going to be the solo queue rated battlegrounds. So those will be, worth mentioning for sure. The power of certain specializations, but it should be fun. And yeah, this is not going to be a perfect tier list. This is a lot of guesswork from me reading through the patch notes. I have played a little bit of 10.2, but I don't know exactly where everything is, but I have a really good idea, I feel like. So this is going to be my best shot at what I think is going to be the best specs for PvP in 10.2. All right, without further ado, we will put all the tank specs where they belong. So we've got the Brewmaster Monk, and this is basically like we don't really like these specs. Who really knows? Like, I don't really know what's going on with them. Put this down here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put Vengeance Demon Hunter in D tier because it's actually not too bad in Shuffle. I'm also, if we are going to take into account Battlegrounds, I think it's probably worth noting that Guardian Druids are also good. So Vengeance Demon Hunter and Guardian Druids, in terms of Battlegrounds, I think actually I'll put them in D tier. They're higher than that. Like for tanks, they're S tier. But yeah, I'll put them in the tank tier. Fuck it. All right. Blood. But yeah, if you guys want to play a tank for the Battleground specifically, I do recommend playing Guardian Druid and the Vengeance Demon Hunter. Okay. And then obviously we need to put Augmentation Evoker down here as well. It is one of the tankiest specializations in World of Warcraft. But all jokes aside, ladies and gentlemen, and feel free, I'm doing this along with my stream, so there'll be a little bit of deliberation with my stream. Maybe they can convince me to change my mind on certain things. But for Augmentation Evoker going to 10.2, I think it's still S tier. I don't think it's getting any nerfs that I can think of. It is currently an absolute menace in solo shuffle and 3v3, and all aspects of the game. Augmentation is completely ridiculous, so it will remain at S tier for 10.2. It is giga strong. Next up, we have the Havoc Demon Hunter, which I believe after the changes are going to be S tier as well. First of all, it's getting reworked, and typically when a spec gets reworked, think Rep Paladins in 10.07, specs like Arcane Mage when it got reworked in air quotes. What else is super OP? When Augmentation was implemented, Resto Druids getting their rework. Basically, when anything gets reworked, it's just OP. So I think from the changes that I've seen, their damage is going to go up, their survivability is going to go up, and overall they're going to have more viable builds. So I can't really see Demon Hunter being less than S tier. Just overall, I think it'll be really good, but maybe I'm wrong. We'll have to wait and see. I don't know if Feral's getting any kind of sizable changes, so I don't really. I don't know too much about Ferals, and if anything's going on, I don't think anything's really happening with Feral Druids, but I feel confident putting them at A tier right now. I think they're pretty solid overall. Augmentation Evoker with a Feral Druid is good. Hunter with a Feral Druid is good. Feral might actually be getting buffed according to the Nocturnal, so I feel confident putting it at A tier. Not sure about S, but this is where we'll keep it. Next, let's talk about Windwalker Monks. Windwalker Monks are getting basically no changes, so I will keep them at A tier. My own personal opinion about Windwalker Monk is I don't enjoy playing them. I think the meta is very miserable for Windwalker Monk. That being said, it's still viable in certain matchups. I just think it's kind of no fun to play. And most of the Windwalker Monk mains that I talk to, they don't like it very much. If you guys love Windwalker, I highly recommend stick with it, I guess, because it's not bad, but it's boring and it's frustrating to play in the current meta. That's my opinion. Yeah. And I think their next tier is actually worse as well. So that's one thing that we're going to have to consider today is the strength of the upcoming tier. And I don't think it's very good for Windwalker Monks. Next up, let's go with Enhancement Shaman. Enhancement Shaman, I don't think there's super significant changes. My stream can correct me if I'm wrong, but Enhancement Shaman, I think, is like, it's a solid, I want to say it's like a solid B spec. I think that's fair. Like, it has some viable comps, but I think overall as a standalone spec, it's probably in like the B range right now. There are some comps that it can play, but outside of its like one-shot gimmick, I don't think it's like the most effective strategy. It can hold its own. It's fun. But yeah, all things considered with tier and stuff, I'm not exactly sure where to place this one, but we'll put it at B. And these are subject to change, okay? Beast Mastery Hunter, I think I'll put at B specialization. Marks Hunter, I'm going to put up at A specialization. And Survival Hunter, I will also put at A specialization. I don't think there's many significant changes coming to Hunter. So this is where I would put these specs for the time being. I think in certain cases you could move Marks up to S tier, but I think I'll put it here for now. What kind of list is this? Just jumped in here. This is a 10.2 PvP tier list, okay? If we are going to be talking about Battlegrounds, I think some Marks Hunters are going to be really, really good. So this could be moved up to like an A+ if you want to consider Battlegrounds. Very similar to Vengeance Demon Hunters, Rogues are getting reworked. And Rogues were already quite good, I would say. And the changes that I've seen for Rogues so far make me feel like they will be very strong. So I can't help but feel like all three Rogue specs are going to be S tier. We'll have to wait and see, I suppose, but Asa, Outlaw, and Sub all seem like they're just flat out getting better. So, yeah. Like, little things are coming here for the Assassination Rogue. Like, all of your bleeds, for example. Like, if someone's below a certain threshold of health, all of your bleeds will just take out and kill them instantly. So they'll have kind of like an execute, which is kind of crazy. I think it's going to be quite strong. Yeah, there's some really good utility coming to Rogues, good talent reworks. I think all three specs are going to be quite strong. I don't know for sure if they're all going to be S tier, but I would be willing to wager that every Rogue spec will be A or S tier. Since I don't know for sure, I'll put them all at A. I think that's fair. I don't want the Rogue community to get all pissed at me. I'll put them all at A for now, but there's a significant possibility that most of them are S tier. I'm going to leave it for now. Fury Warrior, I don't think is getting... So Rogues will be ASS. Yes, exactly. You can put sub at S tier. Okay, we'll put sub at S tier confidently. Fury Warrior, I don't know how I feel about Fury. It's okay. I think it's not going to... I think what I will say about Fury is I feel like it is going to get... I never see Fury. Do you guys ever see Fury? I feel like it doesn't get played that much. It doesn't feel bad. Like, I've played it a little bit. It didn't feel bad, but it's okay. Like, B, maybe? I'll put it at B. I think it's at least B. But I think the real star of the show is going to be Arms Warrior. I think Arms Warrior right now, as it stands, is already a very good specialization. Very, very good. And it is getting a ton of buffs. So it's getting a bunch of PvP talent buffs. And I think it's going to be absolutely bananas. Like, I am convinced, without a shadow of a doubt, that Arms Warrior will be S tier. 100%. I think right now you can make an argument that it's A tier. It will be S tier. 100%. So, yep, that's great. Devastation Evoker, garbage. Unfortunately, the truth about Devastation, guys, and it is a spec that is near and dear to my heart, Devastation is a fun shuffle spec because you have a lot of damage. The only thing Devastation brings is damage. Your utility, it's a very one-dimensional spec. It almost feels like Devastation is just... Since I play all the Evoker specs, I play Aug, I play Preservation, I play Devastation, I feel confident when saying this. Devastation is literally just a pruned augmentation / Preservation Evoker. Like, it literally is missing like 3 or 4 utility spells that it should have. Like, the other spells, the other specs have a lot of unique to them and flavor to them. Devastation has nothing. I don't know what it is. I feel like it needs like a Mortal Strike effect or something like that. Like it needs something because it is just flat out worse than augmentation. Literally, it's just flat out worse than augmentation. In shuffle, I would feel confident putting it at like almost B or A, but just overall, I'll put it at C. I feel like it's not. It might be good in battlegrounds. We'll put it at like C. I'll put it at C. MS with all that burst damage, it's so bad. Like I don't even know what they could give to Devastation Evoker, but it just feels like it does everything Aug does, except it doesn't make your team immortal, you know? It doesn't buff your healer's healing, it doesn't buff your teammates' DPS. It does kind of like the same burst damage, it has like that same one-shot win condition. And you're forced to play Mastery. It might change in 10.2, but you have to play Mastery, which is just worse feeling than Haste, I suppose. Like on an Augmentation Evoker, it's easier to get a Sleep Block off. It's easier to get your cast off. You have more schools of magic you can work with. Like, it just feels way better. So, yeah, Devastation sucks. The end. Preservation Evoker. Actually, we'll go through DPS. I'll do healers last. Okay, so for Mage, I think Arcane right now is probably like S/A tier. I think it's good, and I think it will remain. I think the tier set for Arcane is really, really strong. So Arcane isn't really getting any nerfs. In fact, I don't think it's getting any nerfs, and if anything, its tier is actually going to be greatly improved with empowered Arcane missile damage. I think it's really strong, so I'm going to put it at S tier. Fire Mage as well. I think the only thing about Fire Mage is its survivability isn't quite as good as Arcane. So I'm going to put it at A, but its tier is actually really good. So Fire Stonks are going to be going up. The damage from the tier is going to be really strong, so I would put it at A. And then Frost, I think, is going to be worse overall. Like, it's kind of different between threes and solo shuffle, but yeah, I think Frost is still going to be good. I would put it at like A tier, but maybe goes down to B tier because Frost, the new tier for Frost forces you to play Glacial. And if you don't know, right now, Frost Mage tier is quite good. It increases the damage of your Flurry and Ice Lance by 20%, aka 10% in PvP, but that's still a lot. We're losing 10% lance damage. Like, that's a significant nerf. That is your number one source of damage, and it's getting a 10% nerf. So that's pretty fat, and the compensation really isn't that much. Okay? So I think this is how I would rate the Mage specs. Arcane at S tier, and Fire A tier with Frost a little bit behind that would be my guess. And for rated battlegrounds, or for the solo shuffle battlegrounds, when I played it, I liked Fire the most by far. So just something to consider if you are a Mage player. Fire, I think, is really, really fun in that environment. Next up, we have Frost Decays. Are Frost Decays getting anything? I don't think they are. C. Unholy Decays, I think, are a solid A. Put it here with the melee. I think Unholy Decays are a solid A. I think that Frost Decays are just not... I don't know. They're down in their own little tier with Devastation Evoker, where they just have like a little one-shot gimmick, but overall are just not very great. Rep Paladins are going up to S tier. I don't care what anybody tells me. Rep Paladins are insane. I don't care that Rep Paladins think that they're not viable. By every metric that exists, Rep Paladins are S tier. Like in threes and solo shuffle, they're insane. They're a tank spec. They one-shot you. They're nuts. So Rep Paladin's definitely an S tier, 100%. Yep, that's how I feel. Next, we have Affliction, Demo, and Destro. I believe, okay, so all the Warlock specs are getting a bunch of changes, and I believe that all three Warlock specs are going to be S tier. And I know I've made video after video after video about Affliction being S tier, and it never ends up happening. They keep getting buffed, and they're not going to S tier. This time, it is a little different. And the reason for that is not actually necessarily because of the buffs that are going to Affliction, but because some of the changes that are going to other classes. So three things are happening. There's a couple hard counters right now to Affliction Warlocks. Holy Priest is one of them, where they can just use Phase Shift and dispel your UA. That is disappearing. That's not a mechanic anymore. So Holy Priest, not only is Mass Dispel going to a longer cooldown, I do believe, so they can't Mass Dispel UA in Angel form as often, but they also can't Phase Shift Dispel UA. And Hunter's Feign Death no longer removes magic dots. So that is a big change. So Hunters not being a counter to you and Holy Priest not being a counter to you is a massive, massive buff for Affliction Warlock. In addition to that, they're also buffing the armor of all three specs. So Warlock's armor in PvP is essentially getting doubled, which is about a 9% reduction in physical damage, which might not sound like that much, but it's quite significant. Just getting an extra 9% damage reduction for free against physical damage is quite strong. I feel like Warlocks are already extremely good at living against casters, so being more tanky versus melee is gonna be big. So Affliction, I think, is going up to S tier. Demonology is getting a bunch of changes too. One of the biggest obstacles Demonology faces is all your damage is in Tyrant. So whenever you use a Tyrant against a good player, it gets crowd controlled. It gets counterspelled, it gets blinded, it gets Wake of Ash, it gets ranged, it gets lined, and you rarely ever get value on your Tyrant. And they're actually changing it completely. So they're buffing all the other demons. So all these other random demons that Demo has, like the Imps and the Vile Fiend and the extra Felguard you summon, those are doing way more damage. And when you summon a Tyrant, a lot of its damage is lower, but now it actually buffs up all your other demons even more. So Warlock's consistent damage, or Demo Warlock's consistent damage, is going to be through the roof. It's going to be more tanky, and it's already one of the tankiest specs in the game. So more tanky. Demons are way harder to avoid now. The demons are just going to be destroying you the entire game. I really can't see Demo not being S tier. Truly. Very strong. I think Destro is going to be the same thing. Venruki's biased towards Ret as always. We're not even talking about Ret. This is how delusional Ret players are. We're not even talking about Rets, and they make it about them. It's crazy. Anywho, Destro Warlock, I think, is also going to be really strong. It's super good right now, S tier. It is getting some changes, like Chaos Bolt damage is changing a little bit. They're no longer going to be able to like slang really fast Chaos Bolts together, but the damage of Chaos Bolt is just going to be higher overall, and they are getting that armor changes. I do think it'll still be very strong. Okay. Next up, we have Shadow Priest. Shadow Priest, I don't know if it's really getting any changes. I don't think it is. Feel confident putting it at A tier. Boomkin, similar situation. I don't think it's getting too many changes. Is Shadow Priest getting reworked again? It's losing MD. Okay, so Shadow Priest is getting big nerfs, according to my stream. It's losing MD. What else? Is it getting damage buffs, though? 50% of Insanity procs. Power Infusion is getting nerfed. Shadow already blows. That true, though? Let's see. I'm just going to take a quick little look, all right? This will be a little intermission. Let's take a look. I'm just going to look at these. I don't actually know the stats, but let's look. Solo Shuffle stats. Let's do 2,800 plus. I mean, 2,800 plus in Solo Shuffle. The number one ranged is Shadow Priest, and the number one Ret, the number one melee is Ret. And here we are with people in my stream saying Shadow Priest currently sucks and Ret currently sucks. This is how amazing. Amazing. All right, yeah, anyways. So I think Shadow Priest is still, I don't know, it's getting MD nerfed and stuff like that, but I'm going to leave it at A tier for now. Sometimes people over-exaggerate the nerfs and changes, but we'll have to wait and see. It is true that Shadow Priest has 0 mobility, but obviously the Shadow Priest players that are good are still somehow making it work. We're seeing that. The proof is in the pudding. It's right in front of your eyes. I don't make these numbers up. I'm just looking at the data. Okay? Ellie Shaman. I don't really know what's going on with Ellie Shaman. But I'll put it at A tier. Fury is at least A. They're getting the same PvP talents as arms, and their force set is really good. Imagine safeguarding a kidney and be able to wall the kidney. There's no way. For sure it is an A tier. Okay, sure. I'm convinced. Fury is also getting a bunch of the OP PvP talents that Arms Warrior is. We'll put it at A tier. Okay, cool. Ellie Shaman, I'll put it A tier for now. I'm not overly familiar with what's going on, but I think overall it's a really solid spec. Yep. There's too much in A. Is there, though? Okay, like if you think there's too much in A, what would you demote? I feel like there's just a lot of solid specs overall. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of solid specs in WoW right now, so I don't think there's too much in A. You'd move Windwalker to B? Okay. Well, I have multiple people in my stream saying Windwalker should be B. And maybe that's true. In the current meta, maybe Windwalker's B. I don't know. I never fight Windwalker monks. To be honest with you, I never ever fight Windwalker monks when I'm queuing high-rated arenas, but maybe that's just random. But anyways, yeah. They are getting nerfs on their tier, so okay, that's fine. For healers, I think all healers are getting buffed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when I was reading through the patch notes, it seems like literally every healer is getting just overall healing buffs and throughput buffs. And they're also all getting 90-second trinket, which is big. This is a controversial change within the PvP community. But Blizzard, for the first time ever, is making it so the Gladiator's Medallion is not 2 minutes, but 90 seconds, which is very interesting. I don't know how I feel about it just yet. We'll have to wait and see, but I can't help but feel like it is a mistake. I think what's going on is that Blizzard is trying to incentivize and make life easier for healers, but with this particular change, I think they might be making the game worse for everybody else. And it is important that healers feel strong, but I feel like just never being able to die isn't the way you buff healers, to be honest with you. Never being able to die isn't the way you buff healers. I think what you want to do is make it so they can actually contribute offensively and have like some tools to help end games and feel like, you know, they're contributing offensively, similar to what we see in like Overwatch. You know, like you have heals, they're strong, you keep your team alive, but at the same time you have tools that you can really help out offensively. And I think I'd rather see a direction where healers have more of their offense buffed than more of their just like defense and defensive cooldowns and always having something to answer, because I think that's what makes the game a little bit more boring. But without further ado, I don't really see Rest Druids not being S tier. They're currently God healer, so I'm going to keep them at S tier. Holy Priest, I think you could make an argument that they're also S tier. Does anyone feel uncomfortable with me putting Holy Priest at S tier? Apparently Rest Druids are getting buffed more than other healers, so that's good. I think Holy Priests are very good. Is this right now or the patch? This is 10.2 Zenolin. And I'm so happy that Zenolin here, legendary Holy Priest from Europe, I trust him. So where would you put Holy Priest? Right? Well, not right now, but in 10.2. And Disc Priest, if you know. Because I feel like you've got a better understanding than me. And I just want to give the people on my YouTube and in my stream the correct information, you know? That's important. So we'll see what he says in a moment. They did something like that to healers in Final Fantasy. They retooled their entire PvP mode to play like a different class entirely. Yeah, I think it is not a bad idea. Holy is somewhat being nerfed. Disc might outshine it. In my opinion, it still be S tier. So in Zenolin's opinion, he thinks it's still going to be S tier, and he's thinking the Disc might outshine it. I've heard a lot of really positive things about Disc as well. So if there's the possibility that Disc is going to outshine it, and with everything I've heard about Disc, I'm going to put it at S tier too. Now, this could be wrong because I don't have that much experience with it, but I've heard a lot of really good things about Disc. Are Shaman getting anything? I feel like Shaman aren't getting anything. I'm going to put Shaman at B tier. I actually think Mistweaver Monk are going to be crazy. I feel like if I put it at S tier, that's a few too many specs at S tier, but Mistweaver Monks, their tier is like, it's actually insane. This is with the PvP nerf, but after you renewing Mist, you get 25% bonus healing, which I think is pretty wild. So the Sweeper Monk's healing is going to be even higher, but I don't know if it's enough. Like, they already heal for so much. Is more healing really going to matter? Maybe. I think they're going to be A or S. For RBGs, definitely S, but I might put them at A tier. Because I can't put every healer at S tier, can I? No. Paladin at A tier. And then Preservation Evoker, I am going to put at A tier as well. Is this bad? Like, is that real for healers? The S tier healers are Druid, Holy Priest, Disc, A tier, Mistweaver, Paladin, Augmentation, and B tier Shaman? I don't know. We'll contemplate this more in a second. I've had a few interruptions for my tier list, but anyways, this, ladies and gentlemen, is what we have for the tier list in 10.2. These are my recommendations on the specializations to play if you want to be OP. This is keeping in mind, like I said, battlegrounds, solo shuffle, and threes, and these are subject to change. I don't know everything about 10.2. We'll make an updated one a few weeks into the season, but I think if you go with any of these classes, it's a pretty good guess. Why is Aug at the top of S tier? You know exactly why Aug is at the top of S tier. You know exactly why it is, okay?